quarter of the Timberwolves Nuggets game here on Sunday night, so we're not chatting too much about that. But an active weekend both in the association. But want to start first with some SimWorld prep. One of the biggest notes at the end of the season, most teams 3 to 4 games left, so you start to be able to watch some of the seeding, right? And one of the teams that's been the most fascinating to me has been Lakeshore Drive. They've been, over their last 9 games, pretty darn bad. I mean, they just have not been the same team that was dominant at the beginning of the season, and part of that struggle can be attributed to some of their better opponents. Southeast Yacht Club and Originators are 3 of their losses. Their other 4, Bad Boys Europe, Run, DMV, and Asia Pacific. Second half of that group, not really that great, but they're starting to play some better basketball teams, and that's why we haven't seen them be quite as dominant. Meanwhile, you can't really put too much of the blame of Lakeshore Drive most recently on D'Angelo Jordan. He's had 3 bad games over the last 9. Southeast, he went 6 of 16 to 16 points. Run DMV went 3 of 16 on his way to 7 points, and then against Bad Boys, he went 5 of 15 on his way to 12. Great players are never going to be 100%. Right, that's why the one-game elimination is always challenging. It's difficult to pick somebody that is going to be perfect in a stretch of any number of games. This is why betting on Cooper Flag and the Originators has been, to me, maybe a dangerous game to watch, despite the fact that they've been absolutely incredible. And that problem is not that it's D'Angelo Jordan isn't capable of carrying this team. It's that some of the guys that are behind him have not been doing a great job, most notably Norman Nations, who has really risen up the top player rankings, yet over these last 9 games has kind of been not only not good, but borderline, I wouldn't call him atrocious, but he's just been inconsistent. Let's go with that. He's got 4 games with 13 or more points, but otherwise he just hasn't looked good. He hasn't looked as dominant. He hasn't looked as efficient. He has not been the number 2 that we saw early on in the season out of him to be next to D'Angelo Jordan. The latest run has been a lot more engaged version, however, of Witness work. I think that's a positive for Lakeshore Drive. He's been doing really well. He's got 5 games, 4 of them he's scored 10 points or more. He continues to be somebody who attacks the glass. You need that type of guy. If you look across SimWorld Prep, the types of teams that are capable of winning the race to 1, he is one of them. This team is one of them because Witness work has added himself. He's been a positive on the glass and on the offensive end. So all that. It's not D'Angelo Jordan because he's actually been kind of good. It's not completely on Norman Nations because 50-50, been good to bad. You prefer that to be better based off his production, but that's not the end of the world. And then Witness work, you're getting a much more engaged version of it. So what's the deal? Their defense, which has been pretty bad all season, continues to be atrocious. They have the 28th ranked defense in the league. They allow just over 70 points per game. They were surviving, if not thriving, at the beginning of the season because their offense was great. But as of late, it hasn't been. 6 of their last 9 games, they've scored below their season average of 71.3 points per game, which is 9th in SimWorld Prep. Essentially, what it boils down to is that this season, Lakeshore Drive is no different than Rocky Mountain Monsters. And if you look at the way they play, look at the way they're built, they're very, very similar. Rocky Mountain has an awesome offense, top 4. They have the worst defense in the league. That's the challenge that we are now seeing come to light for Lakeshore Drive. They have been this team all season long. And much like Rocky Mountain has had these pockets where they've been really good, and we've thought, hey, are they turning a corner? And they inevitably aren't, but we wonder if they were. Lakeshore Drive has just been waiting around the edge. And they turned the corner too early, and now all of those challenges are coming to roost. It's the law of averages. A team that's consistently going to score right around as many points as they're going to give up, eventually all those wins, they're not going to start coming up quite as much. And that has been what's happening with Lakeshore Drive, and now it's coming at a time where the spotlight, in my opinion, is falling directly on the Founders region. For one reason, because 3 of the top teams in the league are in this region, but also because it's a fascinating race to close things out. The Beasts are sitting right now with 4 games to play and 2.5 games back in third. The OGs, obviously the Originators, sit on top. They lead Philadelphia Elite by 1 game with 3 games left. These are the schedules for those three teams. Philadelphia Elite, they get Lakeshore Drive, OGs in the north. That second game against the Originators could decide that top spot. The Originators play the North, Philadelphia, and Bad Boys Basketball. And then Beasts have Gotham 5, North, Run DMV, and Lakeshore Drive. Easily the most favorable stretch of those three teams. I'm not sitting here to make a prediction, but I'm saying it's time to start staring those matchups. We talked about this a couple weeks ago on one of our podcasts talking about SimWorld U in the Final Four. But now's the time to start looking at those matchups because the top spot would likely get Gotham 5 in the 1-8 matchup, and then the winner of Lakeshore Drive, Bad Boys Basketball, which you have to feel really, really confident about if you're any of those three teams. That's more valuable than anything. That's more valuable because the opposite side would line you up with a 2-3 matchup that's just dangerous. I mean, you look, we're seeing it right now. Again, we're recording this in the third quarter of the Timberwolves-Nuggets series, Game 4. The challenge that they've had playing each other 2-3 has been massive. And sure, the Mavericks have been really good, and they've been impressively up on Oklahoma City. For all of the Oklahoma City haters that said they were too young, this is those challenges coming to roost. But the 2-3 matchup, I don't think it's a stretch to say is the better matchup. Just because of those two teams, you have to look at them. Now, Mavericks maybe are changing minds, and they should be, up 2-1. But coming into this, though, that was the series, 2-3. You could be looking at the Western Conference winner. That's the more favorable route. I know that Dallas is up, but still coming into these playoffs, the 2-3 matchup was the less favorable pathway if you were one of Oklahoma City, Minnesota, or Denver. So if you're in the Founders region and you're Philadelphia Beasts of the East, the Originators, that 2-3 matchup is not one that you want to get engaged with. All right, SWBA draft lottery earlier today. Again, we're recording this on Sunday. The Hawks make the stunner from 1. I think they came up from 13. They had the second worst odds to get there. They end up with the number 1 overall pick in a draft class that doesn't really have a superstar waiting in the wings. So Atlanta, Washington, Houston via Brooklyn, San Antonio, Detroit. If you watch the broadcast on ESPN, they did a whole expose on the number of picks that could be moving, the number of picks that were owned by somebody else with certain protections. There was a lot of them. And we're starting to see big star trade deals come to roost. Oklahoma City obviously started that all off. They end up with Houston's pick in the top. That one just kind of sits where it is. But Houston, via Brooklyn, ends up with the number 3 pick as a result of the James Harden trade. And for a team in Houston that got frisky, that made a nice push, that was trying to get into the play-in and almost got there, that's a huge win for them. But now now's the time to start exercising caution, I guess you can call it. When do those picks from the Clippers start looking a little dicey? When do those picks from the Wolves? I mean, right now it looks like they're never going to look dicey, but would they ever? Would the picks in Cleveland, if Donovan Mitchell starts walking away, teams are going to suddenly stop trading away first-round picks? The Suns, one of those picks. It seems probably sooner than later that those picks start becoming real valuable, but now's when we're going to start seeing a lot of this. I think this is the beginning of that curve where a lot of teams that went all in for stars on the wrong side of 30 stop really making dividends. And Brooklyn, who certainly could have used a nice piece to add, no matter the fact that this draft is not considered to be a great one, could have used a number 3 overall pick. It's going to Houston. But Hawks, Wizards, Rockets, Spurs, man, the Spurs are going to be dangerous. My favorite part of the whole draft lottery, if you watched it again on ESPN, it was one of the bottom teams. I think it was when Utah came in with the 8th best odds, and they had like a 99.4% chance of retaining their pick. Otherwise, we would have gone to Oklahoma City, and it falls to 10, and you had the general manager for Atlanta. He's beaming, and you had Ime Udoka as the Rockets head coach is sitting there, and Elle Duncan was doing the announcement. She goes, "Look at the smiles on their faces," and they cut to Ime Udoka, who's never known a smile that he cares to turn on in his entire life, stone facing it. But Rockets end up number 3, big pick, and then like I said, this is the beginning. We're going to be seeing a lot more of these, I think, as star teams that fizzle out. Picks end up heading in the wrong direction. That's our podcast. We're back. Obviously, SimWorld Prep returns on Tuesday. We'll be back on every single day with SimWorld 2 Day. So thanks for tuning in. We will talk to you by the time you listen to this Tuesday morning.